choyo sampo pagyo trashi pa tuche tempe trinle yarngoda pegye drolor zampe zeparache palden lame shabla solvade Om Guru Vajradhara Sumatimo Nishasane Kar Uta Vardhani Shri Bhadra Varsa Manya Sarva Siddhi Hum Om Guru Vajradhara Sumatimo Nishas Uta Vardhani Shri Bhadra Varsa Manya Sarva Siddhi Hum Om Guru Vajradhara Sumatimo Nishasane Kar Uta Vardhani Shri Bhadra Varsa Manya Sarva Siddhi Hum Om Guru Vajradhara Sumatimo Nishasane Kar Uta Vardhani Shri Bhadra Varsa Manya Sarva Siddhi Hum Om Guru Vajradhara Sumatimo Nish Uta Vardhani Shri Bhadra Varsa Manya Sarva Siddhi Hum Om Guru Vajradhara Sumatimo Nishasane Kar Uta Vardhani Shri Bhadra Varsa Manya Sarva Siddhi Hum Om Guru Vajradhara Sumatimo Nishasane Kar Uta Vardhani Shri Bhadra Varsa Manya Sarva Siddhi Hum Om Guru Vajradhara Sumatimo Nishasane Vardhani Shri Bhadra Varsa Manya Sarva Siddhi Hum Pakyukye Kudandaki Lo Pakyukye Sundandaki Pakyukye Tu
In the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, I take refuge until enlightenment. With the practice of generosity and the other perfections, may I obtain Buddhahood for the benefit of all sentient beings. This morning, we saw a little bit how meditation is a tool more than an end in and of itself. And for me, it's important to deepen this also because it's a term that is relatively new in our culture. I don't know in your lives how often, how many of you grew up in in a family where meditation was an active part. So when we have a concept, a new idea, it's important to ask ourselves what it is. Because otherwise there's a word, and to that word we attribute a meaning that maybe actually doesn't correspond to what we intend. So when we talk about meditation, it's important for us gradually to elaborate more and more the mental image of what it means to meditate. And it's an extremely powerful and valid tool. But like all tools, it becomes powerful when it's used. Otherwise, mm, it's not, otherwise it's not that important, is it? To say, I can have, think about any kind of tool. If you don't use it for its function, it can even be in the way. It can be just take up space. So it's important to understand what meditation's function is, and a tool becomes precious and important when its function is actually necessary, when we give value to its function. Once that function is no longer deemed worthy, then it loses its power. And it's for this reason that a fundamental point along our path is, once I was talking to my mom about this, the difference between certain Buddhist approaches and certain psychological approaches, Western psychology, and what something came out that Buddhism is important because we can educate ourselves on an emotional level, that and our emotional states are not necessarily the result of something that we lived or something that we are living, but that we have the ability to self-educate. We can educate ourselves to reach certain emotional states. How? It's possible to induce through a conceptual process, even analytical, but not only, even using visualizations, using imagination, etc. It's possible to induce certain mental states, a feeling of gratitude, love, awareness of impermanence or the preciousness of this life, as we talked about before. We can induce many states, and once we induce these states, we can familiarize ourselves more and more, and we are, by doing that, we're educating ourselves emotionally. So the path in Buddhism, it's a path of developing these qualities, all these images around us, the various various meditation techniques and philosophical debates. It's all about method and wisdom, the development of love and compassion, and then on the part of wisdom, the correct view of reality. They should all be at the service of that's at the service of this development. Meditation too is at the service of the developments of these qualities. Why do we do all this? Because I want to be well and I want to help others do the same. And to do that, I need to develop certain characteristics to counter oppose the ones that make me suffer. Let's remember that the path of healing doesn't come by eliminating the sickness, but comes by cultivating the state of health that goes against the state of sickness. So I don't eliminate anger. I develop love and patience that naturally counter opposes anger. I develop humbleness that counteracts arrogance, etc. So the process is all about going towards the light and not going against the darkness. Sometimes we have this tendency of pointing the finger where things don't go well, and we think that by pointing out where it's not going well, we even think that because we suffer so much for what is not going well, that we should be well. It's not it doesn't work like that. Sometimes I've heard people say, with all the work that I do, if I If I don't get enlightenment, who will? So, what does that have to do with anything? Since when does the spiritual path have to do with sacrifice? It has to do with a process of familiarization of what's positive and virtuous, but not always easy. That for sure. But it's not about. It's not by sacrificing oneself or working so hard that one reaches enlightenment. When it's maybe with by sacrificing or working so hard, one could even work more on feelings of guilt or blame or inadequacy. No, it's really important to remember that this path comes by walking towards the light, by cultivating the qualities. Using another term, we recognize where the poison is, but the process, the healing process, comes in the development of the antidote. Like the healing process of a sickness begins when there's a clear diagnosis. So the sickness should be recognized, but the treatment starts once we actually begin the healing begins when we start the treatment. We have a clear diagnosis and we just keep pointing our finger. Oh, what a bad sickness I have! What a terrible sickness I have! That's not going to start the healing process. I need to do work on the opposite. Is that clear? So that we can be better. I mean, we're pretty good at seeing what doesn't go well, what isn't going well. We're good also about self-blame and how I things I don't know, and I should have done this or that. Well, welcome to samsara. We're all here in the same boat. But let's take that energy instead of pointing the finger at ourselves or others and being the victim of the world. Let's put energy into cultivating what's positive and virtuous that counteropposes the aspects we want to eliminate. This is a path of joy, of cultivating love and gratitude. And so I'm cultivating love, and sometimes I get angry. Yes, if it were easy, we'd all already be Buddhas. It's not that there and then it's just done. No, it's a graduated and gradual path. Our mind and our body gradually shape themselves. So along the meditative process, we have clarity about where we want to go, and for this we renew our motivation. And then we try to cultivate these qualities. The process of developing our qualities can be divided into 3 phases that go in parallel. They're all important. Even all of teachings of Buddhas can be summarized in these 3. Tawa, Chupa, and Gompa. Or Dachu Gomsum. So Tibetan language is special because most words are made up of 2 syllables. And that's why the verses are so beautiful. Almost all words are made up of 2 syllables, and most all words can also be said in 1 syllable. So Tawa Chupa Gompa becomes Tachugom. Tawa means view. Chupa means conduct. And Gompa means meditation. So our path, if someone asks, what is Buddhism? What do I need to do? Or how does this path unfold? In these 3 things. And I think all religions, all the spiritual paths, all these methods can be summarized into these 3 points. The worldview. We study that view. It's developed in the sense we look at it from the view that starts with, what is suffering? What is happiness? What is the causes of one or the other? What is a consistent view of reality, and there are many other aspects. So what is our worldview? What is our paradigm that shapes our world? And this is very important to reflect on that, to study that, to gradually, more and more, try to have a worldview that is consistent with reality. That's the part of the view. Then there's the part that goes together in parallel, and that's conduct, behavior, our daily behavior, how we speak, how we eat, how we interact with others, every aspect of our daily lives that ideally is consistent with the view. So it's in the conduct that we put into practice that which we learn. The conduct is the way we interact with our families, the way we go to work, the way we spend our time with our friends, everything that we do in our daily lives. And this doesn't mean that we have to do different things. It's the way that we do these things that becomes important. So in my view, if the cause of suffering are the so-called mental defilements and anger is detrimental within my conduct, I need to try to be coherent with that. But as we said earlier, between saying and doing, there's an ocean in between. Even if I have a clear view, doesn't mean that my conduct is completely consistent with that view. I think it happens to everyone to have a view, oh no, because this should be like that, this should be that, but then actually in practice, we're not always able, sometimes more, sometimes less. And it's here where the third step becomes so important, which is meditation, familiarization. And this is the object of the meditation process, the familiarization, is to become spontaneous in our conduct. At the end, view, conduct, and meditation become one, because one is meditating, even one is not. One's attitude is consistent with one's view. The view. But before getting to that spontaneity, we start by studying our view. And here we read, we study teachings and the philosophy. We look at the Four Noble Truths and mind training, the three principal aspects of the path, the correct view of reality, many things. And little by little, by learning, we change our worldview. It's very important how we interact, because we could also say that the spiritual practice actually happens, mostly in our daily life. And then when we go to the temple, when we come to the Gompa, when we come to meditate, this is where we put more emphasis to generate strength. But it's not that the practice is only there and nowhere else. This is another point. Sometimes people say, "Oh, this is really tiresome. One's never rests." And in truth, when we make a choice with awareness to reach a state of peace, to follow this path towards so-called enlightenment, it's not that sometimes yes and sometimes no, or tomorrow's Monday, no, Tuesday, yes. It's not that I practice Dharma when I'm in the temple, or when I'm home a little less, and when I'm on vacation, absolutely not. No, it doesn't work like that. And it doesn't work like that because wherever there's interaction, there's transformation. And in all moments of our lives, we are training our being. We are shaping ourselves, changing ourselves. And if during meditation I go in one direction, and then when I'm working I go in the opposite direction, at the end of the day, if I am able to make a couple steps forward, it would be very hard. Instead, if I meditate on patience, and then in my daily life, I try in my behavior to also practice patience, which doesn't mean that I never get angry, but I have this awareness. Then gradually one supports the other, and one is really able to make positive steps forward. And even when we ask what Buddhism is, we can say that Buddhism is a spiritual tradition, and it's a combination of worldview, rules of conduct, and techniques of familiarization or meditation. Even the different traditions within Buddhism exist because there are differences in the view, in the conduct, and in the techniques. That's where one can distinguish between distinguish among traditions, which doesn't mean that one is better than the other. It just means there are different approaches. So these three divisions are very important. So when someone asks, "Oh, I want to follow Buddhism, where shall I start?" You start with view. And then we bring our view towards our behavior, and then we begin to meditate. And then we start, and then we continue with all three throughout our lifetime. But with these three, we have a clear idea of the basis of what we're doing. As I said before, the part of the view is a part that has to do with reading, listening, studying. There's a conceptual part, but there's another part that develops over time. There are aspects that are conceptual, and there are other aspects that one absorbs. Let's say. Without saying, first it was this, then it was this, then it was that, but over time, that one realizes that one has absorbed these ideas. So conduct is extremely important too. I highlight that because if we don't have a conduct that is consistent with the view, all the effort that we put in is easily is hard to uphold if it's not correct. And then if we don't meditate, maybe we're on a good path, but we don't have what it takes to make that quality, to make that jump in quality, let's say, or to go deeper, let's say. So these are 3 points that are very important to meditate, as we said before. First of all, it's a state where we direct our mind towards an object. It's a state that we choose, and we should try to keep our mind still on this object, chosen object. And to do this, there are a few passages at the beginning that I wanted to look at together. Normally, whatever the meditation is that one is going to do at the beginning, first we generate motivation, our motivation. There's a text that I like very much. I taught it also once here. We have a translation. It's the questions by Lama Tsongkhapa with a clear intention, with a good intention, and the answers given by Panchen Lotsen Chökyi Gyatsen. So Lama Tsongkhapa, the founder of the Gelugpa tradition, towards the end of his life in Tibet, there were lots of discussions about different views and different traditions, and he wrote a text published at the time and became widespread. He said, so set aside the name of your tradition. Answer these questions. If you're able to answer these questions with consistency, then you're practicing well and you're going in the right direction. If not, go back to study, which means that it's not coherent. And he he asked very straight questions, and he was asking for a public answer, and the one who answered him publicly was Panchen Panchen Losang Chökyi Gyaltsen, about 300 years later, actually, the one who wrote the Guru Puja. And one of the questions is, what's the first step in meditation? What's the first part of meditation? So when one goes to meditate, what's the first thing one should do? And here, Panchen Losang Chökyi Gyaltsen answers the first step in meditating is generating one's motivation, remembering why we meditate. We renew our motivation. It brings us back to our objective. But to generate a correct motivation, it's not possible to do it on the basis of a disturbed mental, emotional state. It's explained very clearly that if we have a state of anger or jealousy or envy, fear, or any other emotional, let's say, so negative state, it's not possible to generate a positive state. From that negative state, one needs to go to a neutral state to then generate a positive one. If I'm feeling anger, first I need to calm down that anger, get to a neutral state, and then generate love. I can't generate love from a state of anger. And when we sit down to meditate, it's not said that every time we sit down that we're ready to meditate. Sometimes one sits down to meditate and one is taken by something that happened that day or something else, or perhaps there was some kind of trigger right before sitting down to meditate. A trigger, something that wakes up. I'm sure it's happened to all of us. At a certain point, boom, something happens that, I mean, there's some people, some more, some less. It seems like you're always they have lots of wrong keys, and they get touched, they get triggered because we have our own traumas, our own bad experiences. So we learn with these kinds of people not to activate, not to trigger things that will trigger things that will wake up a disturbing emotion, let's say. These nyomong in Tibetan, disturbing emotions. The definition of nyomong in Tibetan is nyomong, this translated also as mental defilement or disturbing emotion. These are all the mental states that when they are manifest, they take away this state of balance. They bring a strong feeling of non-peace. So jealousy, envy, anger, do you feel peaceful together with those negative emotions? No, they're called mental defilements. If we want to meditate and we're strongly taken by a given mental defilement, it depends on how strongly that emotion is manifest. If it's too strong and we're not able to generate our motivation, then we should try instead to try to invoke techniques to use up that negative energy. Maybe even easier, take a cold shower, take a nice walk through the woods. But more commonly, it happens that one sits down to meditate. Maybe one doesn't feel taken by anger, but there's something there. So before generating motivation, one should have a short, medium, or long meditation on one's own breath. And there are many different techniques that have the function to bring the person back to a state of balance, more neutral, on which we will generate the motivation and the actual practice. So these practices are already a kind of meditation that can be done alone. They're not necessarily only preliminary practices. Let's see. Some different techniques. Let me try to list them. There are about 5. First of all, we sit in a position. The first thing is to sit down in the correct position. If we see that we're in a disturbed emotional state, what we should do is inhale from our nose and exhale from our mouth. And during the breathing, when we inhale and then exhale, we eliminate that tension. A little bit like what we did this today and yesterday. I inhale, I recognize where the tension is, and when I exhale, I allow myself to relax and to let go of that tension. It's a little bit similar. It's a little similar to observing our body. Where we can recognize where our tension is. For example, maybe my back is tense. I inhale, exhale, and I allow myself to relax in my back without getting into any kind of dialogue or why or a judgment. No, we recognize that the back is a little tense and we do what we need to relax it. So I recognize there's tension and I need to try to melt it away. So it's something that's really interesting to me. I don't know how interesting it is to you. There's a concept in physics that I heard once, which is that energy cannot be created, but can only be transferred. When we have, let's take the example of anger or jealousy, sadness. Is there energy involved or no, or not? There's a strength that's there. What happens when there's a force? This energy is not then directed anywhere. Does it disappear or does it come out somewhere? It comes out somewhere. One thing that can happen is, for example, if we have certain energy that we generate and we don't redirect them or direct them with awareness, they then get absorbed into certain organs or different places in the body that then transform into sickness. Like anger goes to the liver. Even there's an expression in Italian about having a bitter liver. So when we recognize that we have a negative emotion, it's important to recognize the energy that's involved, and a little bit like a pressure cooker, and just let that tension out. So if we have a lot of tension, we inhale from our nose and we exhale from our mouth, trying not to focus on the mental process of the how and the why. Simply, we recognize that thing exists. It's a thing, and I recognize that there's that tension, that there's this emotion, and I want to let it go. So I inhale. I recognize physically where this tension is, and then exhale. When we see that it's not, when that emotion isn't that strong, then we can inhale and exhale from our nose. When it's really strong, we do it from our mouth. Otherwise, directly inhale, exhale from our nostrils. The same thing when we sit down to meditate. First, we heal emotions that are really strong. We can feel them in our body. And then after we see that physically, maybe our body is more relaxed, but can generate tension in our mind. It could be caused by desire, dissatisfaction, by fear, anxiety, sadness, as if it were an emotion that wants to take shape. It looks for a way to come out. I don't know if this is clear. So we recognize these tensions within, and when we inhale, it's as if we allow that tension to manifest, and when we exhale, we redirect them like energy that comes and then passes. Without going into opposition with that energy or blocking that energy, we recognize the energetic characteristic of that emotion too, and we let it flow. And that's enough. And an important point in this phase is to not identify with that emotion. And to do that, a key is to not get into any kind of inner dialogue like, oh, I know I shouldn't get angry, but look what happened. If he hadn't done this, I wouldn't have done that, and this is not fair. There's no need to enter into any kind of dialogue. Simply, I don't need that. This is one of the techniques. It's quite simple. One can also do this lying down in bed or walking. And the more one trains in this, the more one allows the various emotions to show up. Even if one trains well in this, it's one of the most important steps that we can take to change our habits. Outside of meditation, how can we change a habit? Jealousy or anger or envy, whatever it is. The first thing we need to do is to try not to nourish that habit, regardless of what it is. Maybe eating in a certain way or sitting in a certain way, talking in a certain way. It can be a habit, a body, speech, or mind. To be able to change it, the first thing we need to do is to stop nourishing that habit. How do you not nourish that habit? By not repeating it. But it's a habit. So what happens? Maybe I have the habit of complaining. I'm there and I recognize that I'm about to start complaining, and I have all the reasons to do so. I'm about to say something. I'm about to complain. I recognize that desire to complain. What do? At that moment, I don't block it, that emotion, that feeling. But at the same time, I don't follow it. I say, okay, this is a habit that I don't want to cultivate. And I let it go. I try to not verbalize either. I don't take a physical action, and I try not to enter into dialogue with it, because when a feeling arises and I act through that feeling, I'm reinforcing that feeling. If I can, even if I materialize that feeling verbally, I'm also reinforcing it. or even mentally, if I don't do anything, I don't say anything, but I enter into a mental dialogue, I'm reinforcing that attitude mentally. I don't need to identify myself with this. It's a habit. I've done it time and time again, without any kind of judgment. We do something different. We take a walk. We do something different. But we try to not materialize that habit that has arisen. Sometimes we're able, sometimes we're not. But the more we train in this, the more we'll be able to do it. Also, this preliminary exercise where we recognize where the tension is. We welcome, we're kind to this tension that we recognize, but we don't nourish it. We inhale and then we let go of that tension. Is this clear? So there are days where you'll need this more, other days less, but more or less we need to do this all the time. Also, we need to look at our motivation. We bring ourselves to a state of more neutrality. So this first exercise, by breathing, I gather up the tensions, and by exhaling, I eliminate them. Another exercise that we can do together with this, or even afterwards, that's very similar, is where as we inhale light. So we imagine light and nectar that come in and they bring us to a state of peace, bringing us the qualities that we want to develop, nourishing a state of peace, balance, satisfaction, etc. And when we exhale dark smoke, eliminating negative emotions and tensions, negative habits, any kind of negativity that is there as we exhale. And gradually, little by little, there's more and more light and less dirt until there's nothing left to exhale, to eliminate. It's quite simple, isn't it? Of course, it should be done, but the concept itself is quite simple. Always connected with this, there's a technique that I really like a light. It's a little bit more complex. And in Tibetan is Lung Rol Gudrup. It's a technique of breathing, kept secret in Tibet, something that wasn't taught in public. But Lama Ganshin, many times, he said, we teach it now, or it's something that will be lost. Lung Rol. Lung in Tibetan means wind, but also means prana, energy. Rol. It's the same word written in the same way can mean many different things depending on the context. The word rol, the rol means a taste, but it also means corpse. Depends obviously on the context. So lung rol is wind, corpse. We use this, for example, when we make tea. When the tea bag that's not good anymore. How do you call that? When the tea bag it doesn't bring anymore. When you can't use that tea bag anymore to steep it. It's in Tibetan it's cha rol. It's the corpse of the tea. So like corpse, when it's a person, I mean the person isn't there anymore, but something is left. And the same thing with the tea bag. It's not tea anymore, but something is left. So here we mean it's something that has stayed has remained of something that is really not there anymore. So when we talk about lung rol, lung, which is prana, and rol, corpse, it's the remains of some kind of energy, the dirt that is generated, the corpse, the energetic corpse. Lung rol. Good means rol means 9, and drop means to realize. So it's a breathing technique with certain movements and visualizations that is used to release tensions that are blocked in our subtle energy channels. For example, when we have a strong emotion of fear or anger or jealousy, attachment, jealousy, after that moment, do we still feel something after the event, after the fact? There's something. That's the corpse of the emotion, that block that is stayed. These energetic blocks, if they're not cleansed in one way or another, then they get absorbed somewhere in our body. So in this technique, we clean these tensions and blocks. We clean energetically. And we clean these blocks, these energetic blocks, mostly linked to attraction and aversions, because our mental defilements come from these 3 main feelings of attraction, aversion, and indifference. So how can we do this practice? We have one central channel that starts from our forehead, and it follows our spinal cord and goes to the base of our spinal cord. This is our central channel. Then we have 2 side channels that start from our 2 nostrils. They are on the side of our central channel, and about 3 fingers underneath our navel, they enter into the central channel. These 2 side channels are the 2 main channels through which, when we have emotions based on attraction or aversion, we say that our energy flows through these 2 side channels. The right channel makes reference to the left side of the body, and the left channel makes reference to the right part, a little bit like the brain that has these 2 lobes that are opposite. So the right channel has to do with the feminine side that is related more to desire. Well, instead, this left channel has to do more with the masculine part, masculine energy of aversion, and it's masculine and feminine, but has nothing to do with being a man or woman. So these 2 side channels are blocked, are energetically blocked. So in this exercise, we visualize our channels. There are visualizations where the channels twist around, but here we just imagine them straight. They go like a umbrella, like the handle of an umbrella. They go from our forehead and then down our spinal cord to the base of our spinal cord, and the 2 side channels, about 3 fingers under our navel, they enter into the central channel. First, at the beginning, before we imagine our energetic blocks. We feel the tensions created by anger, jealousy, fear. Somehow we allow ourselves to recognize and feel those blocks, and then we do what's called the Vajra fist. We put our thumbs at the base of our ring fingers, and then we make a fist. This gesture is called making a Vajra fist. At our ring finger at the base, there's a meridian, there's an energy channel that goes This is the heart meridian that goes directly, is directly connected to our heart. In Vajrayana practice, it's also called the subtle channel of bliss. In this case, when we touch the base, we're stimulating this channel. It's this, and the same thing, we do this in another point that starts in our leg, a little bit on the inside of our thighs. And with our fists, we press, we do it like a light self-massage, and then we go up, and then forward, and then the left hand under, and we start right under our thumb, and a light massage under our arm, onto our armpit, and then we open up our middle finger and our pointer finger, and we put the middle finger on top of our index finger, and we, with our index finger, we put pressure on our right nostril, and we inhale from our left nostril. And you can inhale and exhale with strength, like. But the instructions that I've read and I've received, it should be done very gently, without such force. Then we go back. We inhale deeply again from the left side. Then we hold. And then we exhale. Again, then we repeat this 3 times, and afterwards we do it on the other side. And then we do the same thing on the other side. 3 times. After the 3 times, then we go back. We put the 2 hands in meditation. And at this point, we inhale from both nostrils and we exhale from both nostrils. What do we visualize here? The first time when we're inhaling from our right nostril, I've seen this. Let me just add that I've seen this exercise written being done in both ways, where the right hand closes the right nostril or closes the left nostrils. But let's choose. Let's say that the right hand closes the right nostril and then the left one closes the left nostril. So we visualize that light comes in. It goes through the side channel, and then underneath, as we inhale, the light goes about underneath the navel, and then we hold, and we concentrate our energy under the navel, and then as it goes up toward the other channel, we are cleaning all the energy blocks in the opposite channel. So we inhale and it goes down, we hold under the navel, and then as we exhale, it comes out the other side channel. And then we do the same thing on the other side. It enters, goes underneath the navel. We hold our breath for a moment. As we hold our breath underneath the navel, you can do what is called the vase breathing, which is in a few words. I inhale, I hold my breath, but then I push the energy towards the below, and I contract slightly my pelvic floor, and so I bring the energy above as I'm pushing. I'm sending the energy down, and it puts a little jump. It's very similar to what's done in many martial arts, where many of the exercises that are done start from here, start from underneath the navel where the energy is concentrated, and that's where that energy is directed to the hand or to the leg. There was Kenko, this Japanese master, who martial arts master, and we send our dedications and our hello. She's 90 years old, about a meter 50. She's Japanese. It was wonderful to see her. One scene that really touched me. They had a very strong man in front of her. You can imagine like a real, a bodybuilder kind of. She was able. She said, use all all your strength and and push me down and and she was saying, push me down, and he wasn't able, and then before you knew it, she had him on the ground, and she had him very sweetly held, but in a position that really was generating a lot of pain. And she was saying that martial arts that is done well, you use subtle energy, and that's why the women are actually can be much better at martial arts, because men want to use their muscle, and women who have less muscle mass, they have to rely more on their subtle energy. It's the same thing. When we inhale, we need to concentrate our energy underneath our navel, and from there we use that strength to push up to get rid of those energetic blocks that are there within. Is this clear? As a breathing, we inhale, and when we inhale, we we bring towards the below, and as we're taking the air down, we're also closing those lower doors and bringing the energy up as we hold. And we do it with both hands. The energy, the air goes into both channels, and when we concentrate at the energy at our navel, and the energy goes into the central channel, and when we exhale, the air goes out, both channels. And we imagine energetic blocks caused from attraction and aversion, ignorance, selfishness, they're completely eliminated. This technique is normally translated as 9-round breathing exercise, but it's a bad translation. It's not breathing in 9 cycles. It's the 9 cycles of the wind corpse. We eliminate the energetic blocks that are created from our emotions in these 9 cycles. There, I found a more precise. They found a cuter translation, but the meaning is that these energy corpses, purification of the energy corpses, as an exercise. Is that clear? So first of all, when we do this exercise, you need to do it at your own speed. That those who inhale, more slowly, or more quickly. So when we inhale, when we are done inhaling, we hold our air, and we hold it under our navel as we move our hand to the other nostril, and then when we actually exhale, the air moves to the other side channel to purify that channel. So we're going to do now this exercise together, that first part that I had explained, and we're going to add this too. Our friend Yeshi is going back to India tomorrow, so have a good trip. Thank you. So we sit in a comfortable position with our back straight, but not um, tense. Our shoulders are relaxed. Our head is slightly bent forward. Our mouth is relaxed. Our eyes are slightly closed, looking downwards. We observe our own breath without forcing our mind. We simply accompany the air that comes in, that we hold, that goes out, that we then hold again, and then comes back in. When we inhale, we gather up the tensions that have accumulated in our body. When we exhale, we allow that blocked energy to release itself, and we relax that part of our body that was before tense. So inhale and exhale. We gather up the tension that have accumulated in our mind. And when we exhale, we release these tensions, and gradually we allow ourselves to rest more and more, keeping a clear state, an awake state, but a deeply relaxed state of body and mind. When we inhale, we imagine light that brings us blessings from the holy beings, bringing us a state of love and satisfaction, peace. A light that fills up our body. When we exhale, any tension, any negativity that has remained in the body or mind is eliminated. We visualize our body like a body of light, light and transparent. At the center of our body, there's our central channel, which is strong, which starts from our forehead and goes down to the base of our spinal cord. From the two nostrils, the two side channels come, which run to the side of our central channel and enter into it 3 fingers under our navel. We observe ourselves and we recognize that within these channels there are energetic blocks caused by our own selfishness, by this obsession with self-gratification, caused by fear and anger, anxiety, sadness, envy, attachment, and so forth. We recognize these energetic blocks and we desire, we want to eliminate them. To eliminate the energetic blocks, we will now do the 9-round breathing exercise. We make a Vajra fist and we follow this exercise.
Inhale and exhale. Breathe naturally, allowing the energy to flow naturally. The air goes into our side channels, into our central channel, and then goes out again from the side channels. We keep our awareness on our breath, and little by little, gently we open up our eyes and we move our hands. This exercise, as we said before, called the 9-round breathing exercise, is an exercise that I invite you to do often. You can do it before any meditation practice or other exercises. You can also do it by itself. So we begin our day before we do anything else. We can do 9-round breathing exercise without doing any other meditation. But I invite you to do this exercise and feel for yourself, experience for yourself. Instead of saying it's good for this, it's good for that, one needs to try. One of the functions of this exercise is to help us not accumulate during the day and the days tensions that are generated by our emotional reactions. If we're able to do this, let's say it's part of our ordinary maintenance, and this would really help us a lot. So we've seen the breathing where we eliminate tensions of our body and mind by breathing from our nose or from our mouth or just in and out of our nostrils, and then we inhale light, we exhale dark smoke, and then we have also this exercise of 9-round breathing exercises. These are all techniques that are
normally preliminary to a meditation, to bring the mind to a more balanced and neutral state. And now there's some techniques, techniques to bring the mind to the actual to the present state, and they can be preliminary practices as well, or can be meditations in and of themselves. So once we have eliminated these after we've sat in a comfortable position, eliminated our tensions and energy blocks, let's start observing our breath. We bring our attention very gently to so there's a difference between being aware of our breath and bringing our attention to our breath in the 4 phases. So when we're just aware of our breath, we know we're breathing, the air comes in, the air goes out. We're aware of this process. In this phase, beyond just being aware, we actually bring our full attention onto our breath. And here, one way is that one concentrates on the feelings, the feeling of the air in our nostrils when the air comes in and the air goes out. So we choose to place our attention on our breath as if we gently place ourselves and we say, okay, now you're here. We place our attention on our breath and simply we inhale sweetly without forcing, and then we exhale in the 4 phases that we talked about. So we inhale, we exhale, we inhale, we hold, we exhale, and we hold. I mean, there are pranayama techniques where we count, inhale 1, 2, 3, hold 1, 2, 3, 4, exhale 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So, I mean, there are different techniques. But in this case, it's not pranayama practice, and we shouldn't force our breath. Simply observe it and let it naturally be longer or shorter without forcing it. We simply accompany our breath with our mind, and little by little we let our attention melt with our breath. So we inhale, we hold, and then we exhale, hold, inhale, and so forth. And we try to keep our attention there. And as we're doing that, it's possible that other thoughts arise. And as other thoughts arise, we can try to use what we used before, this mindful recollection. It's it's almost like we have a kind of string attached to our breath. So even if it tries to go astray, we have this string to bring it back. And at the same time, there's another part of our mind just to make sure that it's staying focused. So that's the vigilance. So if thoughts arise, and if we recognize, these thoughts arise, that's already a good thing. We don't follow it, and we just very gently come back to our breathing. If we don't even realize it, and we only realize that once we're thinking already of something else, okay, we just let it go. We let it go. We don't follow it. We don't block it. Then we bring ourselves back to our breathing, and little by little little by little. So our mind goes somewhere else. No, come back here. Don't try to block the thoughts. When we try to block, as we've said, that's when we then we become possessed by mental agitation. No, we just bring our attention back to our object of meditation gently, which is our breathing. It's quite simple, isn't it? This there's another technique that we can add to this. That for some it works better, or for some less. Where together with this we count. So I inhale 1. Actually, no, I inhale and then I exhale 1. I inhale and I exhale 2. And we count up to 7. If after 7, if our mind is still distracted, then we add another 7 to get to 14, getting all the way to 21. There's a beginner's way and an expert way. In the beginner's way, you can the counting helps us stay connected to our breathing. Even if the mind goes somewhere else, we shouldn't lose sight of our counting. If we lose their counting, then we go back to 0. In the advanced way, we inhale, we exhale 1, and we inhale, exhale 2. If between inhaling and exhale 2, then we go back to 0. So we inhale, and at the beginning it takes, well, you can stay in a loop for a long time, and that's not great. It's better at the beginning to, like I said before, we put our breath on a kind of leash, let's say, and it can go on, but it always comes back. But we recognize that it's going to go a little bit around. When we have more experience, at that point, we can inhale, exhale 1, and then we go. If we get to 5, and between 5 and 6, the mind wanders, then we go back to 0 and to 1. Once we get to a certain number, 7 or 14 or 21, to bring our mind to a balanced and more calm state. And this is why we do this too. Another exercise, there's an exercise one can do. One is particularly anxious. So you take your rosario, you take your mala, and you do 108 breaths. You inhale, exhale, inhale, exhale, and then one thing. So it's better if I calm down quickly, because it's going to take a long time to get to 108. But just counting our breath allows us to calm down, calm the mind down. This is an exercise where we inhale, we exhale, and we maintain our attention there. If we're able at a certain point to just stay, and we can rest our mind on our breath, if our mind is rested on our breath, after the numbers, we get to 21, whatever, then we just stay there, and gradually we take away the other external stimuli that goes from outside to inside. There's a painting. I invite you to look at it. It's there by the door to the left. The first one, you see the previous lives of Lama Michel Rinpoche in the center, Panchen Sampotashi, and then to the left, there's the fire, the fire extinguisher, and then above there is the path of meditation. That path that goes up. There you can see there are 9 steps, 9 elephants, and then an elephant that flies, representing the 9 stages to develop the stages of meditation, and the final one, you can see that there the elephant has reached the state. There's at the very top where you see at the end of the path is the reaching the state of shamatha. But at the beginning, you see the meditator running after monkeys and an elephant, and the practitioner, the meditator, has a cord, a rope, and the cord is the mindful recollection, and the hook is the vigilance. And then so you see at the beginning the elephant and the monkey are dark. So the monkey is mental agitation. It has this, when a monkey is in a tree, I don't know if you've ever seen a monkey in a tree, it never stays still for long. It jumps from one branch to another, and our mind, it jumps from one object of perception to another, one memory to another, from the past to the future, constantly. So at the beginning, and then you see along the path, even from far, you can see there's a white conch. Then there are 2 circles, there are 2 symbols, and then there's a mirror, and there's a kind of scarf, and there's also some fruit. It representing 5 senses, because when we sit down to meditate, what happens is our attention is strongly taken by our senses. The first sense that we're able to overcome is the smell. That's why at the beginning you can see the conch. It's the symbol of perfume, of smell. And then here, I can't see so well from here, but there's also fruit, which represents taste. And then there are the symbols that represent sound. And then there's a mirror that represents form, or the eyesight. And then there's the scarf representing touch. There's also flames, and the flame represents the necessary effort. The amount of effort that one needs to put in, and as we go along the path, the flames diminish. The practitioner is in front of the elephant once he is no longer attached or grasping at the senses. So that's when he has able to go beyond this attachment to his senses, because here we sit down to meditate. What happens? There's a sound. Where does our mind go? It goes towards that sound. There's a mosquito. Where does our mind go? Towards our touch, a smell. Our mind goes there. So at the beginning, we're very taken by our senses, and gradually, in this process of bringing our mind again and again onto our object of meditation, the breath in this case, we're able to take away our attention, and our able to not be taken by our 5 senses, and we're able to tame our mind more and more. then you can see that at a certain point the monkey stays behind and then completely disappears, and the practitioner is able to be in front of the elephant and then on top of the elephant. And then, so along our process, what we do is we are little by little, we're taking away our attention to the five senses. We're there, we're observing our breath. And when we recognize that we're taken by what we hear or see or smell or any other aspect of our senses, it's almost as if we should try to not give a name. It's not someone talking, it's just a sound, because there's a difference. When there's a sensory object, when we attribute a name to that sensory object, that name comes together with concepts, meanings, memories, emotional characteristics. I mean, many things come together with that name. So there's a difference between sitting down to meditate when there's the sound of the wind in the trees or someone whistling. It's different to our mind, isn't it? If someone's whistling, and how can he do such a thing? I'm sitting here meditating. But maybe it's similar to a sound of a bird, but we give a different connotation to it, even if it's a very similar sound. So as we hear sounds or images, it's almost as if we should leave them in their abstract form as much as possible without grasping to those sounds, to those sensory objects. Somehow, little by little, we let them go farther away in a more abstract way. It's like we allow ourselves to not pay attention to a noise, for example, a sound. We say, oh, maybe later I can listen to that. Now is not the time. And we bring our mind back to our object of meditation. And the more we can do that, the more we can do that, our mind becomes more and more concentrated, and our five senses become farther and farther. Touch is the last because touch also includes pain of our body. Oh, look at my leg that has fallen asleep, or my back that hurts. We are taken, our attention is really taken by our various senses, and the one of touch is the strongest. So we should try to not give importance to these objects of our senses, keep them abstract, and bring as much as possible our attention back to our breath. Is the theory clear? So, by doing this, we shouldn't do this for too long, especially at the beginning. It's important to stop meditation when it is still pleasurable. I say like slightly pleasurable, because it's not always pleasurable, but never get to a point where you're feeling that you can't go on. Someone has asked me, what if I try to force it? I go beyond. I'm always able to get a little bit better. But instead, it's not like that. The more we force something, the more aversion to the exercise we generate, and we shouldn't do that. These are our friends from Alessandria. And Pimpala is a disciple of Lama Ganchen from 1967. Oh. One of the reasons why it's important to train is because when the more important moments arrive, often these are the moments where there's no more time to prepare ourselves. In the sense that when, how can I say, moments of where the stronger moments, physical, from a physical point of view, or external, or some kind of external physical situation, there's not a lot of time to think about it at that point. That's why one needs to train, one needs to prepare himself to maintain one's balance, stay calm, and give a direction. And even so, when there are these moments like one's own death, and when that moment comes, we need to maintain our path. And something that gives me a tremendous amount of pleasure, of happiness. There are many people in the West, here in Italy in this case, not necessarily Italians, but people, by following the practice, by following the teachings, they have managed to face their own death in a very healthy way. So, because this is one of the greatest challenges of our life, and at some point it's up to all of us. Kyabshe Tson Rinpoche, a master of Lama Ganchen, he was very direct, and once, a little bit jokingly, said, if one pretends to be a great practitioner, I'd like to see you on your deathbed. See there, have you really practicing? He did the top of the top. One day he went home. He had a kind of a big cassette player, like the ones that we used to have, like 2 cassettes, and his name was Kyabshe Tson Rinpoche, and his image is represented here, where you see white Buddha Vairochana. To the left is the first one. There, he's represented there. He's got this white beard. And he recorded what he wanted to tell all of his disciples, instructions. And then he called them, he spoke to them, and then he went to find his master, Kyabshe Chichen Rinpoche, where there was stupa, because he had already left his body. He went to make praise to his master. Then he went home, he sat in meditation, and he died. And there's actually a story about his life. Kyabshe Tson Rinpoche, at a certain point, he came to Europe in the 90s, and Lama Ganchen was in Switzerland at the time, the very first years in the West. And Kyabshe Tson Rinpoche, at a certain point, got very sick. He had a high fever. He wasn't well. And Rinpoche went to find him, to see him, and asked him if he could offer him a long life prayer. And Chapter Rinpoche said, "I'm so sick, and then and you're gonna make me, have this long life puja too." And Lama Ganchen said, "No, we'll do just the essence of the essence." And he did a long life puja, extremely essential, but also very profound. And from that moment on, Tsong Rinpoche felt better. And when he came back to India, and he had his close disciples nearby, and Kutin Lama was present. He was here during the inauguration of our temple, and he told me about this story. And Tsong Rinpoche said to him, "Now look at it here. I was there in Switzerland. I thought I was going to leave my body there. Instead, Lama Ganchen came, and he called him the bearded one, and he did that ceremony for me, and I got better." Because sometimes these interdependence of the things. In any case, Tsong Rinpoche said and showed himself that one of the signs of practicing well and having a stable mind is not losing one's mental stability during the moment of one's death. Even here at the center, I've seen people leave their body and not lose their mental stability. There's a friend even left his body a short time ago, and I was really deeply touched. We obtain this ability to maintain our stability during the time of our death by preparing ourselves during our lifetime. And when we get to that last challenge of facing our own death, if we're able to maintain our inner stability, or it's a great gift also to those around, because when one dies well, it's also very helpful to all of those close to him or her to process and experience the loss. So another reason why it's important to meditate, to get used to taking the reins of our mind in our hands. It's important so that we're able to maintain control of our mind and not lose our direction. Even the breathing exercises, they can seem long, but after a while, once you've mastered them, then you need really to breathe in, breathe out 2-3 times, and then you're there. And you've reached that level of stability. Also, because together with this, I talked about this a little superficially before, after the meditation sessions, it's important for us to maintain our awareness. Even the way we end meditation is really important. So if my meditation was my breath or something else, before I close the meditation, I bring my attention back to the awareness of my breath, and then I keep that awareness. As I'm keeping the awareness of my breath, or this object of meditation, then I start my daily activities. And as much as possible during the day, one should maintain this awareness, like that phrase, like when someone asked Lord Buddha, "What is it that you and your disciples do?" And Buddha answered, we walk, we sit, and we eat. And this man and asked him, "Well, what's special about that? We all eat, walk, and we all eat, sit, and we all walk, sit, and eat." He said the difference is that when we're walking, we're walking. When we're sitting, we are seated. And when we eat, we are eating. And this is something that we can train ourselves in as well. This process of our daily practice. Now, for example, we'll take a short break. Be present as you walk. Be present while you eat. If you're drinking, be present. As you're speaking, be present. Be aware. If you're listening, be aware. Whatever you're doing, be present in what you're doing. And if we're able to bring more awareness in this way, the quality of our life really gets better. Even relationships, if we need to listen or talk to someone, even if we have just a short amount of time, but if we're present, you transmit much more. I mean, how often has it happened that you've had the sensation that you've spoken to someone who's not really there, or you've with someone who's talking to you and you're not there? Instead, with the presence, there's an exchange that's much more authentic, it's more real. And for anything, if we need to write something, if we need to read something, when there's presence, then there's presence, then there's it's richer experience. Even something really simple like drinking water. I drink the water and I feel the water that goes into my mouth, that comes down. I'm not thinking, oh, here, this is so nice, but I'm looking and, thinking about something else. No, we're present, even with these sensory pleasures. Try to do everything we can with as much awareness as possible. Like this, one thing helps another. The meditation and the in-between sessions. One point of meditation is it's a simple exercise that doesn't have negative side effects. It's free. It requires some effort and constancy and brings optimum, wonderful results. And this is up to each one of us to do it. Today I wanted to give more emphasis to explaining what meditation is, also because I see more and more it's in fashion. Meditating is in fashion. But one thing is the meditation, exercises that relax body or mind. But that's not meditation. Like we say in a Tibetan, it's not that because you call your dog a lion that it's a lion. Because it's really common. It's really common in Tibet to call your dog Senge, which means lion. So it's not because you call a practice a meditation that it really is meditation. But there is a great difference between a relaxation technique and what is a meditation. That's fine. Maybe there are techniques that are called meditation that are not meditation, but that are also very positive. I'm not saying that they're negative, but one thing is one thing and another thing is another, and the names should correspond to what they actually are. And so you can then also choose and practice with more awareness. So let's take a break. And we'll come back at 6:30 to do a short meditation together, and then again at 9 o'clock.
Drove Munsel Tatu Negurchi Kewa Kuntu Yanda Lama Dang Dralme Cheki Pela Longche Chin Sadan Lamge Yunte Rabzone Dorje Change Kopa Nyurtobasho Nimo Dele Tsendele Nime Kuyan Delek Shin Yinsen Takto Delek Pe Kuncho Sumke Chingi Lobo Kuncho Sumke Ngodrubotsol Kuncho Sumke Trashishon
At dawn or at dusk, at night or midday. May the three jewels grant us their blessings. May they help us to obtain all realizations and sprinkle the path of our lives with various signs of auspiciousness. Chashidele. I will come back at 6:30. Thank you.